Before the world knew her as Shakira, before the stadium tours, before the record-breaking hits and global fame, she was simply a young girl growing up in Barranquilla, Colombia. What few people realize is that the road to becoming one of the most successful female artists in history almost ended before it even began. Shakira Isabel Mebarak Ripoll was born on February. Her family wasn't wealthy, but they were rich in culture and creativity. Her father loved literature and storytelling. Her mother encouraged her imagination. From a very young age, Shakira displayed an unusual obsession with words. While other children were playing games, she spent hours writing poems and creating stories. She wasn't dreaming of fame. She was dreaming of expression. By the age of 4, she was already writing poetry. At 7, she received a typewriter as a gift. That small machine would become one of the most important objects in her life. Every day she filled pages with thoughts, emotions, and ideas. Without realizing it, she was training herself to become one of the greatest songwriters of her generation. But life wasn't always easy. When Shakira was still young, her family faced serious financial struggles. Her father's business collapsed. Money became scarce. The family had to make difficult sacrifices. For many children, such challenges create fear. For Shakira, they created determination. She later explained that seeing her parents struggle motivated her to dream bigger. She wanted to help. She wanted to change their future. But there was another challenge. Shakira didn't fit in. She was different. Her voice sounded different. Her appearance was different. Her interests were different. At school, some classmates saw her as strange. Even worse, when she joined the school choir, something happened that would have crushed many future singers. The choir teacher rejected her. According to stories from that period, the teacher believed her voice sounded unusual. Some even described it as sounding like a goat. Imagine hearing that as a child. Imagine being told that the very thing you love most isn't good enough. Most people would quit. Most people would accept defeat. Shakira did neither. Instead of abandoning her dream, she became even more determined. The rejection became fuel. Every criticism became motivation. Every obstacle became a challenge she wanted to overcome. Around this time, another influence entered her life: Middle Eastern music. Because of her Lebanese heritage through her father, Shakira grew up surrounded by rhythms and dance styles that were different from what many Colombian children experienced. She became fascinated by movement. She studied belly dancing. She learned how emotion could be expressed not only through words but also through physical performance. Years later, those influences would become one of the defining characteristics of her global image. But at that moment, nobody could see the future. Nobody could predict that the little girl from Barranquilla would one day become an international superstar. What people did see was a teenager who refused to stop believing. She performed anywhere she could. School events, local competitions, small gatherings. Every stage mattered. Every audience mattered. She treated each performance as if it were the biggest show of her life. Eventually, local journalists and producers began noticing her talent. Doors slowly started opening. Not many, just enough. One opportunity led to another. Then another. Then another. Soon, she found herself meeting people connected to the music industry. For the first time, her dream seemed possible. But success would not arrive overnight. In fact, the next chapter of her life would bring disappointment, commercial failure, and moments that made her question everything. The world sees the superstar, the headlines, the awards, the fame, but very few know how close Shakira came to disappearing before her career truly began. And that is exactly where the next chapter begins. By the time Shakira was a teenager, she had already convinced herself of one thing. Music wasn't simply something she loved. It was who she was. Every poem she wrote, every performance she gave, every dream she carried pointed toward the same destination. She wanted to become an artist. Not someday. Now. And for a moment, it looked like that dream was coming true. At just 13 years old, Shakira signed her first record deal. For most teenagers, It would have been the happiest moment of their lives. A contract, a recording studio, professional producers. The chance to release music. Everything she had worked for seemed to be happening. But what came next would test her more than she could have imagined. In 1991, Shakira released her first album. The project represented years of dreams and effort. She poured her heart into it. She believed people would finally hear her voice. She believed this was the beginning. Instead, almost nobody listened. The album sold very poorly. The public barely noticed. Radio stations ignored it. The music industry moved on. For a young artist, failure is painful. For a young artist who has built her entire identity around music, it can feel devastating. Yet Shakira refused to quit. She convinced herself that the first album was simply a learning experience. The next one would be different. The next one would work. So she returned to the studio, worked harder, wrote more, improved, pushed herself. Then came her second album. Again, she hoped this would be the breakthrough. Again, she imagined audiences discovering her songs. Again, she imagined success. Again, disappointment arrived. The second album also struggled. Sales were weak. Attention was minimal. Momentum disappeared. The industry began losing confidence in her. Executives started asking difficult questions. Was she really marketable? Could she actually succeed? Did people even want her music? Suddenly, the young girl who had dreamed of becoming a star faced a terrifying possibility. What if everyone was right? What if the choir teacher had been right? What if the critics had been right? What if she simply wasn't good enough? Most people only see successful artists after the breakthrough. What they don't see are the lonely nights before success arrives, the moments when self-doubt becomes louder than confidence, the moments when giving up feels easier than continuing. For Shakira, those moments became increasingly common. The pressure was growing. The record label wasn't interested in endless second chances. The music business rarely waits for anyone. If an artist doesn't generate results, someone else quickly takes their place. And Shakira knew it. At an age when many teenagers were thinking about school dances and weekend plans, she was worrying about whether her dream was already over. Yet something inside her refused to surrender. Deep down, she believed the problem wasn't her passion. The problem was that she hadn't fully found her voice. She wasn't creating music that truly represented who she was. She wasn't expressing herself completely. Instead of trying to become what the industry wanted, she decided to become more herself. It was a risky decision, but it changed everything. During this period, Shakira withdrew from the spotlight and focused on writing. She filled notebooks with ideas, thoughts, stories, observations, personal experiences, heartbreak, dreams, fear, hope. She wrote constantly. The young girl who once filled pages with poetry now transformed those emotions into songs. Not manufactured songs, not songs created by committee. Real songs, honest songs, songs that sounded like her. At the same time, she was absorbing influences from every direction. Latin music, rock music, Middle Eastern rhythms, Colombian sounds, poetry, literature. Everything became part of her creative identity. Slowly, she began building a style that didn't sound like anyone else. And that's exactly what made some executives nervous. The industry often prefers predictability. Shakira was unpredictable. Her voice was unique. Her songwriting was deeply personal. Her musical influences came from different cultures. She didn't fit neatly into a category, yet that uniqueness would eventually become her greatest strength. Then came what many fans now consider one of the most important moments of her entire career. A final opportunity, a final chance, a final album. If it failed, her recording career might be over. The pressure was enormous. Everything she had dreamed about since childhood depended on what happened next. There would be no excuses, no backup plan, no guarantee of another opportunity, only one shot. Imagine being barely out of your teens and knowing your future depends on a single project. That was Shakira's reality. Many artists would have played it safe. Many would have followed trends. Many would have tried to imitate whatever was popular. Shakira chose the opposite. She trusted herself. She trusted her writing. She trusted her instincts. And she began creating an album that would completely transform her life. The album was called Pies Descalzos, Bare Feet, a title that reflected honesty, authenticity, freedom. When it was released in 1995, something extraordinary happened. People listened, really listened. For the first time, audiences connected with her songs. Her lyrics felt different. Her voice felt different. Her energy felt different. The girl who had once been rejected for sounding unusual suddenly became impossible to ignore. The album exploded across Latin America. Hit after hit followed. Fans appeared everywhere. Concert opportunities multiplied. Sales skyrocketed. The industry, that had doubted her, suddenly wanted to claim they had always believed. But Shakira never forgot those years of failure. She never forgot the feeling of being ignored. And perhaps that's why success never made her complacent, because she knew how quickly dreams could disappear. Yet even as her fame grew, a bigger challenge was approaching. A challenge that would transform her from a Latin American star into a global phenomenon. The world was about to discover Shakira, and once it did, nothing would ever be the same again. By the late 1990s, Shakira had achieved something many artists spend their entire lives chasing. She was no longer an unknown girl from Barranquilla. She was a star. Across Latin America, her music was everywhere. Her album Pies Descalzos had changed her life. The success continued with Donde Están los Ladrones, as an album that many fans still consider one of the greatest works of her career. The songs were deeply personal. The lyrics were intelligent. The emotions felt real. People weren't simply listening to Shakira. They were connecting with her. But despite all her success, Shakira carried a bigger dream. She wanted to reach the entire world, and that dream came with enormous risks. At the time, very few Latin artists had successfully crossed into the English-speaking market. Many had tried. Many had failed. The language barrier alone was enough to destroy careers. Friends warned her. Industry experts warned. Her critics doubted her. Why risk everything? Why leave a market where she was already successful? Why start over? Because Shakira had never been afraid of difficult challenges, she began studying English obsessively, not casually, obsessively. She read books, watched films, analyzed lyrics, practiced constantly. She didn't want translators writing her songs. She wanted every word to come from her own heart. Imagine learning a second language well, enough to write hit songs that millions of native speakers would sing. That's exactly what she attempted, and many people thought she was crazy. But Shakira had spent her entire life proving doubters wrong. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 2001, she released Laundry Service. The album represented years of preparation, years of courage, years of believing she could achieve something others considered impossible. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If the album failed, critics would say they were right. If it succeeded, history would be made. Then the world heard a song called Whenever. Wherever everything changed, almost overnight. Shakira became a global phenomenon. The song exploded across continents: Europe, North America, South America, Asia, Africa. Millions of people who had never heard her name suddenly couldn't escape her music. Radio stations played the song endlessly. Music channels featured her videos constantly. Fans became fascinated by her unique combination of talent, intelligence, and charisma. But there was something else. Something that made Shakira stand out from nearly every pop star of her generation. She didn't look or sound like anyone else. At a time when the music industry often pushed artists into predictable molds, Shakira felt refreshingly different. Her voice was unmistakable. Her dancing was unique. Her songwriting was personal. Her personality felt authentic. Wasn't pretending to be someone else. She was simply herself, and people loved her for it. Soon, hit after hit followed. The world watched as she transformed from a Latin superstar into a household name. Concert venues became larger. Tour crowds became bigger. Album sales climbed into the tens of millions. Her success was no longer regional, it was global. Yet fame came with a cost. The more famous Shakira became, the less privacy she had. Every decision attracted attention. Every relationship became news. Every mistake became a headline. The little girl who once dreamed quietly behind a typewriter now lived under the constant gaze of the world. But while fame was growing around her, something remarkable was happening inside her. Success wasn't changing her priorities, it was expanding them. As her fortune increased, Shakira became increasingly aware of the struggles faced by children around the world. She remembered her own family's financial difficulties. She remembered the obstacles she had faced, and she wanted to help. Years earlier, while still very young, she had founded the Peace Descalzos Foundation. As her career exploded internationally, the organization expanded its reach. Schools were built. Educational opportunities were created. Thousands of children received support. For Shakira, success wasn't just about wealth, it was about impact. Fans often searched for answers about what made her different from other celebrities. Part of the answer was education. Shakira has always been known for her intelligence. She speaks multiple languages. She reads extensively. She constantly studies new subjects. Even at the height of fame, she continued learning. While many celebrities focused only on maintaining popularity, Shakira seemed interested in understanding the world. That curiosity became part of her identity. Meanwhile, her career continued reaching extraordinary heights. Awards accumulated rapidly. Grammy Awards. Latin Grammy Awards. International honors from around the globe. Each achievement confirmed what fans already knew. Shakira wasn't simply successful, she was becoming one of the defining artists of her generation. Then came one of the biggest moments of all. World Cup football is more than a sport for billions of people. It's emotion. Identity. Passion. And in 2010, Shakira became connected to one of the most iconic World Cup songs ever created. Waka Waka, This Time for Africa, became a global sensation. The song united cultures, countries, languages, fans everywhere. Suddenly, Shakira wasn't just one of the world's biggest musicians. She became part of one of the biggest sporting events on Earth. The song's impact was enormous. Even today, millions of people instantly recognize it. Yet something else happened during that period. something far more personal. While the world celebrated her success, Shakira met someone who would eventually change the course of her life, someone whose name would become permanently connected to hers. A rising football star from Spain, a man named Gerard Piqué. At first, nobody could have predicted what would happen. The relationship seemed like a fairy tale, a global music icon. A football champion. Two successful people at the top of their professions. Fans loved the story. The media loved the story. The world watched as their relationship grew. And for a while, it appeared that Shakira had achieved everything she had ever dreamed of. Fame, success, respect, love, family. The perfect life. But life has a way of revealing truths that photographs cannot capture, because behind the smiles, behind the headlines, and behind the image of perfection, challenges were quietly beginning to emerge. Challenges that would eventually lead to one of the most talked about heartbreaks in modern celebrity history. And when that heartbreak arrived, it would inspire one of the most dramatic reinventions of Shakira's entire career. For years, Shakira seemed to have everything. She had conquered the music industry. She had sold millions of records. She had performed in front of enormous crowds around the world. She had become one of the most recognizable women on the planet. And then there was love. When Shakira met Gerard Piqué, around the time of the 2010 FIFA World Cup, their story quickly captured public attention. He was one of the world's most successful football players. She was one of the world's most successful musicians. Together, they looked unstoppable. Fans saw a fairy tale. Photographs showed smiles. Interviews showed affection. The media presented them as one of the most powerful celebrity couples in the world. Soon, they built a life together in Spain. Over the years, they welcomed 2 sons into their family. For Shakira, motherhood became one of the most important parts of her identity. She often spoke about how becoming a mother changed her priorities. The superstar who once spent every waking hour focused on music now balanced global fame with family life. To many observers, she appeared happy, stable, fulfilled. But relationships are complicated, and the truth behind closed doors is often very different from what the public sees. As the years passed, fans began noticing changes. Public appearances became less frequent. Rumors started circulating. Speculation grew. Still, few people imagined what was coming. Then, in 2022, the announcement arrived. Shakira and Piqué were separating after more than a decade together. The news exploded across the world. Millions of people wanted answers. What happened? Why did they break up? Was there another person involved? Could one of the world's most famous couples really be over? The breakup quickly became one of the most searched celebrity stories on the internet. Reports and media coverage suggested that trust had broken down within the relationship. Various stories emerged in the press regarding alleged infidelity and growing tensions between the couple. While many details remained private, the public conversation became impossible to ignore. For Shakira, the experience was deeply painful. This wasn't simply the end of a relationship. This was the collapse of a life she had spent years building. Collapse of a future she had imagined. And perhaps most importantly, it affected her children. In interviews after the separation, Shakira spoke openly about how difficult the period had been. She described it as one of the darkest times of her life. Imagine experiencing heartbreak while the entire world watches. Imagine trying to protect your children while newspapers, television programs, websites, and social media discuss your personal life every day. That was Shakira's reality. The emotional pressure became overwhelming. Yet something remarkable happened. Instead of disappearing from public view, Shakira returned to the one place where she had always processed pain: music. Just as she had done as a little girl writing poems on a typewriter, she began transforming emotions into words. Those words became songs, and those songs became headlines. Millions of listeners immediately noticed that her new music felt different, more direct, more personal, more emotional. The heartbreak wasn't hidden, it was right there in the lyrics. Fans analyzed every line, every metaphor, every reference, every possible clue. The songs became global events. People who had never followed celebrity news suddenly became interested in Shakira's story. One release in particular generated enormous attention. Its lyrics were widely interpreted as addressing the breakup and its aftermath. The song spread across social media at extraordinary speed as streams exploded. Videos accumulated hundreds of millions of views. News organizations around the world covered the story. People debated the lyrics, supported her, criticized her, discussed her. But one thing was undeniable. The world was listening. Once again, Shakira had turned adversity into opportunity. What many people search for today is not simply why the breakup happened. What they really want to understand is why Shakira's response resonated so deeply. The answer is simple: because heartbreak is universal. Most people know what it feels like to lose someone, to feel betrayed, to question themselves, to wonder whether years of love were real. Shakira expressed those emotions publicly in a way that millions recognized. The songs weren't just about one relationship. They became songs about resilience, about survival, about finding strength after disappointment. And perhaps that is why they connected so strongly. Yet the breakup wasn't the only challenge she faced during this period. At the same time, she was dealing with intense media scrutiny, legal disputes, family concerns, and the pressure of rebuilding her life. For many people, one of those problems would have been enough. Shakira faced all of them at once. Still, she continued moving forward. She continued creating. She continued performing. She continued reinventing herself. And something surprising happened. Instead of ending her career, the heartbreak introduced her to a new generation of fans. Young listeners discovered her music. Older fans reconnected with her story. Her popularity surged once again, more than 3 decades. After first dreaming of becoming an artist, Shakira was proving that resilience remained one of her greatest strengths. The little girl who had been rejected from a choir, the teenager whose first albums failed, the woman who risked everything to conquer the world. She was still standing, still fighting, still writing her story. But the final chapter of that story is perhaps the most important of all, because it isn't about heartbreak. It isn't about fame. It isn't about controversy. It's about legacy. How a girl from Barranquilla became one of the most influential Latin artists in history. How she changed music forever, and how her impact will continue long after the headlines fade. As the dust settled after the heartbreak, the headlines, and the endless speculation, one question remained. Who is Shakira when the cameras are gone? Not the global superstar, not the woman filling stadiums, not the celebrity whose personal life became international news, just Shakira. The answer may be the reason her story continues to resonate with millions of people around the world. Because beneath the fame, the awards, and the fortune is a woman who spent her entire life overcoming obstacles that should have stopped her. And somehow, they never did. Think about it. As a child, she was told her voice wasn't good enough. As a teenager, her first albums failed. As an artist, She faced enormous pressure when she decided to enter the English language market. As a woman, she experienced one of the most public breakups in modern celebrity history. Yet every time life knocked her down, she found a way to rise again. That resilience has become one of the defining themes of her life. Today, Shakira is widely recognized as one of the most successful Latin artists in history. Her music has crossed borders, languages, and generations. Fans who grew up listening to her in the 1990s now share her songs with their children. Few artists achieve that kind of longevity, even fewer maintain relevance for more than 3 decades. Yet, Shakira continues to do it well. Many people search for online is simple. Why is Shakira so famous? The answer goes beyond music. She didn't simply create hit songs, she became a cultural bridge. Long before Latin music dominated global charts, Shakira helped introduce international audiences to artists from the Spanish-speaking world. She showed that language wasn't a barrier, emotion wasn't a barrier, culture wasn't a barrier. A great song could connect with anyone, and that influence opened doors for countless artists who came after her. Many younger musicians have followed paths that were easier because Shakira helped clear the way, but perhaps even more impressive than her fame is what she chose to do with it. Throughout her career, she remained deeply involved in philanthropy. Years before many celebrities began creating charitable foundations, Shakira was already investing in education for disadvantaged children. Her work through the Pies Descalzos Foundation helped build schools and create opportunities for thousands of young people facing poverty. For Shakira, education wasn't simply a cause, it was personal. She understood what limited opportunities could mean for a child's future. She understood how easily talent can be lost when people don't receive support, and she wanted to change that reality. Another reason people admire her is her intelligence. Fans are often surprised to learn how academically curious she is. Shakira has spoken multiple languages. She has studied history, literature, philosophy, and world affairs. Even during the busiest periods of her career, she continued learning. That commitment to growth became part of her identity. She wasn't content with simply being famous. She wanted to understand the world around her, and perhaps that's why her songwriting often feels deeper than typical pop music. Many of her songs explore insecurity, identity, love, fear, hope, transformation, the emotions that make us human. When listeners connect with Shakira's music, they often connect with pieces of their own lives. That's something statistics can't measure. And speaking of statistics, the numbers behind her career are extraordinary. Billions of streams, millions of albums sold, countless awards, record-breaking tours. Global recognition, yet numbers alone cannot explain her impact. Because legacy isn't measured only by achievements, it's measured by influence, by inspiration, by where the lives touched along the way. Somewhere today, a young girl is being told she isn't talented enough. Somewhere, a teenager is wondering whether failure means the end of a dream. Somewhere, someone is experiencing heartbreak and questioning whether they can move forward. And without realizing it, they may find encouragement in Shakira's story, because her life is proof that setbacks are not endings, they are chapters. The choir rejection wasn't the end. The failed albums weren't the end. The criticism wasn't the end. The heartbreak wasn't the end. Every obstacle became part of the journey. And that journey transformed a girl from Barranquilla into a global icon. But perhaps the most remarkable part of Shakira's story is that she never stopped evolving. Many artists spend their careers trying to repeat the past. Shakira continually embraced change. She adapted, experimented, learned, took risks, started over, again and again. That willingness to evolve allowed her to remain relevant through changing musical eras, technological revolutions, and cultural shifts. While others disappeared, she endured because she understood something powerful. Success isn't about reaching the top once, it's about continuing to grow after you get there. And that may be the ultimate lesson of her life. Not fame, not fortune, not awards, growth. The courage to keep becoming something new. Today, when people search for Shakira, they often search for the scandals, the relationships, the headlines, the controversies, but those moments are only fragments of a much larger story. The real story is about perseverance. It's about creativity. It's about resilience. It's about a young girl who refused to let other people define her future. A girl who transformed rejection into motivation, failure into determination, heartbreak into art, and dreams into reality. Long after the charts change, long after the headlines disappear, long after today's trends are forgotten, that story will remain because legends aren't remembered for being perfect. They're remembered for continuing when quitting would have been easier. And that's why the story of Shakira continues to inspire millions around the world, not because she never fell, but because every time she did, she found a way to rise.